Welcome back to the Michael Yardney podcast, where we share strategies that help create wealth and success, particularly through property. And while we spend a lot of time talking about property, today I've got a very special episode that's not specifically property related, and it's even more special if you're a parent out there. And even if you don't have kids yet or you're not planning to, you're still going to learn a lot about money and wealth from my special guest today, Loral Langemeir, author of the transformative book Make Your Kids Millionaires, but also she's been well known as the Millionaire Maker. She's an acclaimed financial strategist from the United States, and she's mastered the art of teaching parents how to cultivate strong financial foundations for their children from an early age. So in my chat with her today, you're going to see how we talk about money habits and lessons that are essential, not just for children, but hey, for you as well to be more successful with money, how to become, in her words, a millionaire. So whether you're wondering how to start the crucial money conversations with kids, what tools you could use, what pitfalls there are, today's episode's packed with guidance. So it's coming straight from the expert too. So let's get started.
Welcome to the Michael Yardney podcast, where twice each week you will learn a number of new ideas regarding success, property investment and money in around 30 minutes. Our show is brought to you by Metropole, who specialise in helping you grow, protect and pass on your wealth through strategic property and wealth advice. Now here's your host, Michael Yardney, Australia's authority in wealth creation through property, who has been voted one of Australia's top 50 most influential thought leaders.
You rarely hear me say this, but I'm very excited about my guest today, who I've been following for a number of decades. Joining me from the USA is Loral Langmeir, a financial expert, author, educator, sought-after speaker with over 20 years of experience. And she's worked with luminaries such as Bob Proctor, Robert Kiyosaki, John Gray, J. Conrad Levinson, Sharon Lechter, Michael Gerber. Boy, the list goes on. And Loral's a 6 times New York Times best-selling author, but she's on a mission to change the conversation about money and empower people around the world to become wealthy. In other words, to become a millionaire. And we'll go into that in a little bit. So welcome, Loral.
Well, thank you. And it's great to be here. And it's great to be with the Aussies. I spent a lot of time in Australia, had corporations, trusts, proprietary limiteds, I had partners, had an office in Circular Quay. Love the Australian group, and I have just a great community there. So I'm going to say, good to be back home.
Fantastic. And interestingly, while I know a lot about you, as I said, I've been following you for a while, I would like, before we get into the meat of the discussion, for you just to tell us a little bit about yourself, because many of the people in my audience won't know you. So why are you authorized to? Have you got the right to tell us what to do about money, Loral?
Because I'm the millionaire maker.
I like that.
You like that? That kind of just gives the creds, right? I love when people say I'm the millionaire maker, and it's like, yeah, well, I got the book.
Now, people can't see it, but on my bookshelf in the back there, I got that many, many years ago. So yes, it's on my bookshelf, and I'd recommend it for others as well.
Yeah. And so I grew up in a farm in Nebraska. Fast story to my future. Got the book Think and Grow Rich at 17 years old by Dennis Waitley. I was at a seminar about ready to go to college, university, and change my whole degree to go be in finance and study why so few people can figure out how to be a millionaire. It cannot be that hard. But you can imagine farm girl from Nebraska reading Think and Grow Rich going, oh my gosh, like this is a whole nother conversation. There's a whole nother world of personal development. So that changed my entire trajectory. Went through school, had my own personal training business. So I was always an athlete. Worked in investment banking for like 2 minutes and then went back, got a master's degree, built 272 fitness centers on offshore oil rigs. That was actually my first journey to Australia, was with Chevron, building fitness centers off the coast of Papua New Guinea. And it's been the most interesting journey, Michael.
Really?
Yeah. And then Bob Proctor, he was my mentor at 21. I figured out how to pay him $25,000. And I'm like, $25,000, Bob, I don't have it. He said, you'll figure it out if you really want this. So I did. And Bob was my mentor. He's the one in 1996, then fast forward, when he called and he said, I think I have your transition. I know this guy and this lady. They're writing this book called Rich Dad Poor Dad, and they have a game. Maybe you could go help them with the game, fly to Phoenix tomorrow. So I flew, met at Sharon Lechter's kitchen table, came home the master distributor of the cash flow game, quit Chevron, like literally went from health
I
to
played that when I was young. Yes, great game.
Yep. And so I quit like Chevron, and I went and followed a Japanese guy in a game round from 96. Thank God in 98, Rich Dad Poor Dad hit it big. And from there, I'd say the rest is history. 1999, became a real estate millionaire here in Midwest, and Oklahoma. Norman, Oklahoma was my millionaire city. And then from a real estate millionaire, I became a gas and oil millionaire. And then around 2003, 4, 5, I started flipping companies. I flipped a supplement company, a recycled glass company. Thank God, got out of real estate before the 8, 9, 10 debacle and, survived. But that's also when I started coming to Australia, because we created this amazing global crisis. So I started coming to Australia regularly in 2009 and 10. That's when I got an office and a staff and a team. We actually, this was my first book in 2005. I wrote it in 6. It became a bestseller, The Millionaire Maker. And then my 5th book was in 2012, also became an Australian, through Dimmick's bookstore, bestseller, called Yes Energy, because you got to have yes energy to be a millionaire. And then I kind of laid down the writing for a while, Michael, and I had to go prove a point that I could make my kids millionaires. So when my son turned, I was in his 20s. So in 2022, I came back with one more round to write this book on how my kids were millionaires on paper and through trust. And how do you build this? This is my ultimate goal now, is really teaching people about a legacy, Michael. And so many people who do property and invest, they leave their kids behind uneducated, and then they hand a bunch of money to a bunch of uneducated kids. So I've got quite a range of a mission.
Boy, you have.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of it as a single mom. My kids have been in Australia. My daughter grew up in Australia. She still speaks Aussie. She'll say, she'll say straight away. She won't say, let's go, mom. She'll say straight away, so it's fun.
Well, Loral, clearly you've got the background, but it's not as a theorist. You've done it yourself, and that's what I like. And while we could speak about any of those books, and I love the concept of legacy, I think that's important, and I love the concept of being a millionaire, today maybe we could just talk about your book, Make Your Kids Millionaires. And for people listening to this, even if they don't have children or don't have children yet, I'm sure the lessons will still be of benefit for them. So what made you'd written the other books, what inspired you? You started to tell me about that, but maybe we could dig into a little bit. What inspired you to write about making your children millionaires? Because it's not what you leave them, it's what you leave in them so that they can do it themselves, I believe.
You are correct. And so this isn't about creating trust fund babies. This is about creating educated, responsible kids for a legacy. Most people don't have a legacy. So I say you have a plan, whether you design it or it's going to happen to you by the courts. So
Yes.
If you don't have a plan and you don't have a trust and you end up in a probate court anywhere in the world, this is going to happen to you. The court will decide for you versus you decide. So we put these, workbooks, we have journals. In fact, I have a client that built a software around this, which lays out exactly what to do. And I think for me, Michael, I don't think so. I know I was very intentional in 1999 when I got pregnant with my son. I knew I'd be a single mom. He wasn't ready to be a dad, didn't want to be a dad. So I entered parenting as a single mom and knew I was going to do it different. I wanted to design a legacy. I wasn't traveling ever as a young child, and I said, I'm going to take my kids all over the world. So there's just some things that I set in play that I was going to achieve and going to do. So the minute my kids were born, they were employed by my companies. They got tax-free savings accounts. Here in America, they're called Roths. Over there, they're tax-free accounts, right, through superannuations. So I've done a ton of work there. In Canada, they're RSPs. I mean, I know almost most of the countries around the world. In principle, it's the same on how you make a kid a millionaire. But a lot of it is through corporate structure, through trust, and through a lot of life insurance done right. And so for me, it was about just being able as a single mom to just prove I could do it, because I was just told over and over and over as, being pregnant, oh my God, you're going to be a pathetic single mom. Oh my God, you should move home, have to be with your family. I said, no, I'm going to do this whole game differently. So a lot of it was just me proving to myself there has to be a different way. And
Well
then
done.
it took 20 years. So to your point, here's what I would say about the book. So first of all, Kyle Beckman is my co-author. He is a client of mine. He was a 25-year Air Force fighter pilot, Air Force fighter pilot trainer. So his story is a very different story, but he got the same result, right? 25 years of service in the military. And here's me, single mom, running around the world as an entrepreneur, real estate, a lot of business deals. Just so the whole book's premise is just, you got to take this seriously. So pick pick a path. You got Kyle's, which is super conservative. You got mine, which is much more aggressive. So somehow between us, we've given you our stories. Mine was a very different journey and his was a very different journey. So it's pick a path, but make a plan for you and your family and write it down and document it. And inside of the book, we did 87-point checklist of what you could have, should have done between 0 and 20 with your kids. So now, if I could rename the book, Michael, I would rename it to what you could have, should have, would have done. But it's not too late. So I don't care if you're 30, 40, 50, 60, I don't care how old you are. The book's relevant to what you could have, should have, would have done. Some of the stuff, it's more kid related. I'm like, never pay your kids an allowance. Well, that era's probably passed, but not for your grandkids. So there's a lot of just tips. And I always say there's not a chapter. So the chapters of the book, I'm just so proud of how we laid this out. And I got to give a lot of credits to Kyle. Did a lot of work laying this out. We do birth to 5. So it's like literally birth to 5. 6 to 8, 9 to 11, 13 to 15, 16 to 18, and then 18 and beyond because you're an adult. So what could you, should have done and what you did do and what activities, like when do you start a kid's business? When do you start talking about money? So we have different various stories about each of these age groups and what the development of a child is and how you just instill it young and they stay with it. They love to do it. My kids know how to make their money. I'm not their bank. They know how to make their own money. They can go get a tutoring job. They can go take ski lessons. You know how many ski lessons my son taught to a bunch of Australians? They left him way up on the mountain, but he got paid a lot of money to teach him how to ski.
Interestingly, most adults are still playing the same game over and over in their head that they heard in the first years of their life. So I understand your concept is to start early. Interestingly, we see people, we run a once a year high-end workshop called Wealth Retreat, and even the very, very successful people there are driving around with one foot on the accelerator, the gas as you'd call it, and one on the brake. They have limiting beliefs and empowering beliefs. And a lot of those limiting beliefs came from their parents when they were a child. So I think we have a huge responsibility. It's things they hear, things they see, things they experience in the early ages. And I think they learn a lot of their money habits in the first 9-10 years of their life, don't they, Loral? So when should you start talking about these sort of things?
1 and 2 right away. In fact, I have a YouTube channel that's family friendly. It's Loral Langmeir, the Millionaire Maker, and it's 5 days a week. It's family friendly. And you got to get this conversation around the child and really be mindful of your conversation in the household. So I'd say it starts like at birth because, subconsciously, even at 0 and 1, they're absorbing all this. So if you're in the negative frame of we can't afford it, don't ask for anything, and you say those negative things, the way a child's subconscious interprets that is I'm not worth it and I'm deserving. So then the rest of your life, you're dealing with I'm not, deserving and I'm not worth it. You're dealing with that crap, which is why I partnered with Bob Proctor for so long, because we needed to get through that, which we talk about in The Secret. Like anything that you do, consistency compounds. So if you're consistently negative, guess what you're going to get? Negative, negative, negative. If you're consistently positive, but with right action and right knowledge, you're going to get what you want in your life. You're going to design it, not let it just happen to you. And a big part of this also is the responsibility of the kids' contribution to money. I mean, they need to know it. And now, we're in the crypto age. We're in such a high technology age of money, and there's so many online repositories, and they're not really banks. And a lot of people don't even know the difference of who they're giving their money to. Because they're so.
Well, it's interesting because when I grew up, there weren't credit cards and you had cash and you had money and you actually had to do lay-by. I'm not sure if they had that in America, but if you wanted to buy something, you'd go to a shop and they'd put it aside, and every weekend you'd put a few dollars there and you could get the present for Christmas or whatever. But today they tap something, or not even a card anymore, your phone, so cards are going to go. I think that would make it a bit harder for children to understand the concept of money, Loral.
It is. And, I take people back to, again, kids love games. Kids are very tactical. They're also very technical. So Monopoly would be the first game I put around your kitchen table. If you have cash flow, you could find one. Put cash flow around your kitchen table. And then I built a game called the Millionaire Maker. So it's the big one. It's a compilation of everything. How do you build a business? How do you build a team? It's every facet. There's all these facets of what it takes to become a millionaire. And I put that around the kids around 6, 7, 8 years old. So you immerse them in those kind of games. And the difference, because I watched Rich Dad, Poor Dad go online with the cash flow game. and it went up and down in a minute, and the investors never made their money back. Why? Because the computer did all the computing. So instead of them having to have a manual P&L and a balance sheet where I had to erase, like if you and
Yes.
you know it better than anybody. Anybody who buys a property, it affects your income, your expenses, your assets, your liabilities. But if you're not moving the numbers around like manually, you don't know the pattern of money, which means you don't learn. If the computer just does it for you, it lost all the learning. So honestly, cash flow became kind of a betting game, and it went way off the rails, way the wrong direction. And watching that, people always ask me, why did you put your Millionaire Maker on a technical like online platform? And I said, because I saw what happened with cash flow. You lost the learning. The learning is in learning, like with this is my Millionaire Maker.
Yes.
It's you are learning to say, okay, I bought an asset, I bought a piece of property. Here's the asset part, here's the liability part, here's the income I'm going to make, here's the expenses it's going to take. And until you see that it affects your cash flow and net worth. So it affects 6 components of your financial life. And if you don't know it, you can't just have a computer throw up a screen and a bunch of numbers and say, oh, I understand it. So I still manually, we play the game. In fact, tomorrow night we have a game night here in our office. So I tell families, like, get our game and put it around your kitchen table, and put the book at the kitchen table. Like, have things be around, like have my YouTube channel for 10 minutes every morning. Just be in the conversation and be in an active conversation with your kids. It's not, one of the things that Kyle and I talked a lot in the first part of the book, Michael, is, it drives me crazy when people say, oh, the schools should teach money. No, they shouldn't. You should. Parents, get off your lazy, right? Get off your rear and be responsible. I mean, here's where most people parent. TikTok, TikTok, TikTok. Let TikTok teach your kids, or you teach your kids. And I'll tell you, nothing was more disappointing than watching parents say, oh, I can't wait to get your book. And a year later, I haven't even got it out of the box yet. I'm like, you haven't got it out of the box? Like, are you kidding me? Like, you got to get out of the box. Like,
I'm going to put links to your books in the show note and links to your website where people can get all that in your YouTube channel. So that'll be useful. So it'll be really interesting to see if people who are watching this or listening to this, and there's tens of thousands every episode listen, I wonder how many are actually going to take the next step and click on the link, even do something as simple as that. But you're right. We all want to. There's the old woulda, shoulda, coulda, but why not take some action? And it's not just for your children, but it's also for yourself, because I guess a lot of people in Australia learned them all around the world, learned their money habits. We all learned it from our parents, who learned it from their parents. And when I used to do seminars, I'd say, put up if you have multimillionaire parents. And if my kids weren't in the room, hardly anyone put their hand up. And I said, but every time there was 1 or 2 people who did. And I said, do you think the conversations around their kitchen table were different to the conversations around your kitchen table? And so we have all learned these bad money habits, but Loral, is it too late for adults to change their habits?
No, absolutely not. And I call them inherited behaviors, just so the label I put on those. A lot of you have inherited
Makes
behaviors.
sense.
Yeah. And so when you inherit it, you never chose it. So, I make it very logical. I make it not emotional, because money isn't emotional. I would say, data, money numbers don't lie. People do. So get it logical. Like, again, get it down to there's 6 financial terms you need to know. You need to know your income, your expenses, your cash flow, your assets, your liabilities, your net worth. So you got to start understanding money, how it really works. And having a good job and being overtaxed is not the way that wealthy people live. We live in companies, right? So in Australia, I have proprietary limiteds, I have trusts. I still have a great accounting team there. I offer up our team a lot of our, Australian clients that can get good insurance, good property people, good tax counsel that actually has some strategy to it. Most accountants, they just record your history. Where true tax strategists and true financial strategists, they help you forecast your future. And that's where I want you to I always have a so what now what, Michael. It says, so what happened to you where you are financially? I don't care if you're divorced, bankrupt, whatever, foreclosure, whatever you went through, you're here. What did you learn? Let's take the lessons learning, but let's look forward. What do you want? And yeah, I think I watched a homeless guy come into Sydney, into one of my conferences in downtown Sydney. And I knew he was homeless because he came in with this cart. And our whole team looked at me like, are you going to let this guy stay? And I was traveling with actually Harry Dent and Pat Mesiti and a whole bunch of those guys, John DeMartini. And I said, yeah, of course. Like anybody can learn and get new knowledge about money. Well, that guy, fast forward, is multimillionaire. He lives in Cambodia. He gives all his money away to charities. So I've taken somebody homeless straight out of Sydney, Australia Convention Center, made him a millionaire. I've taken women that have 6 kids in Africa. So it's about their intention. It's about what they want. It's what they're willing to stop tolerating. There's so much about the action in your environment, but a lot of it's right here. It's the lack of knowledge. People say, well, I'm just so scared with money. And I said, you're scared because you don't know. If you
Yes.
knew, you wouldn't be scared.
Now, interestingly, you mentioned about accountants. If I could just point out that I agree with you that most accountants are compliance driven. And when you ask them who their client is, they say, oh, of course, John Smith, wherever his name is. No, it's not. Their client, or in their mind, is the tax department. They have to fit in with the rules. And if their clients, 20% of their clients, or their clients claim 20% more tax deductions or car allowances than the computer spits out they should, then they get themselves into trouble. So you actually need an accountant who is proactive. As you say, they're not easy to find, but I guess mentors are really important at all stages of your life. So we started talking about children, and your parents are your mentors. Later on in life, you need other mentors as well. But in today's age, it's really hard with TikTok and Instagram, as you say, to know who to listen to, because there's always these new young gurus coming up. And I know a secret. You've said, I know how to become a millionaire, but you have become one and you have made millionaires. That's the big difference, isn't it?
Well, the history. And I always say, like map someone's history and you'll know if they're real on the internet. Because, with COVID and 2020, like you said, everyone's come to the internet. Everybody's got a secret. Everybody's got a sauce and a something. But the truth is, I've become a millionaire in 8 industries. This year will be 9 industries. These are different industries, unrelated industries. So I've done it 9 times over. I've done it for over
Wow.
10 people. Over 10,000 people become millionaires, many Australians, many from all over the world. Anyone can learn it. It's, are you willing to, again, lay down what you don't know? You said too, Michael, you put on a wealth conference. So I have what's called the Big Table. It's 25 years. This year is our anniversary of our big mentoring and mastermind. And it's fascinating how many people have leaned in and it works perfectly for them. And then there's that few who complain, well, it doesn't work. And it's like, because you're not willing to work and you're going to die laughing. So I bought this recently.
Uh-huh. So those on listening to this, because while a lot of people watch on YouTube, not everybody listens. So Spotify actually has videos as well, but Apple doesn't. So what have you got in your hand, Loral?
Well, this is a nice little magic wand. So
I love magic wands.
yeah, because a lot of times people, that do complain about me or whatever, they'll say, well, because it doesn't work. And it's like, no, you don't work. So you have to study. There's a lack of knowledge there's just a void, because what you've been taught is completely wrong. Like the biggest myth is that you have to get out of debt and be debt free. There's nothing farther from the truth. When you understand debt's just the cost of money and you know how to use it, I can make millionaires with people who are in debt and are willing to go into good debt and arbitrage debt. If you don't even know what I said, again, I have a magic wand, but I cannot touch you. And magically it's going to happen. My magic wand's kind of a joke, because people say, well, you have a magic wand. Can't you just like sprinkle me with pixie dust and it's going to get all better? And I'm
It's all
like,
going to happen.
You have to do the right work. You have to do the
Yes,
right work. Just
clearly.
like, and in The Secret, I think the law of attraction had the negative side, I'm going to say, because it's not about just sitting in, Maserati, and all of a sudden you have a Maserati. You have to do something to make the money. You have to do something to do due diligence on which car you're going to buy. You have to do something to actually take a loan out or actually have the cash to buy it. There's action just to do even the basic lifestyle things, which I'm not a lifestyle fan. I'm an asset fan. And then once you have enough assets, then you can buy yourself a lifestyle.
Clearly.
Most people do that in reverse, which is why they never get ahead. They just buy a massive lifestyle and they don't buy assets.
So one of the common themes of the successful people I've come across, Loral, is delayed gratification.
Yes.
Do the easy things now and you're going to have a hard life later. Do the hard things now and you're going to have an easy life later. How do you teach your children that in the days of instant gratification?
Because you got to give them some consequences. And that's where parents are, honestly, I'm going to say sloppy or lazy. They won't hold accountability to, you'll be grounded for a week. Well, 2 days later, they're so sick of hearing their kid, beg for their phone back, beg for their keys back, or beg for whatever back. They just give up. So consequences are a huge piece of that. And it's about them choosing. It's like, okay, if you make that choice, like this is how I taught my kids, if you make that choice, here's the pros, here's the cons, here's potential consequences. So you're going to have to live by them. Like my funniest story, one of my funniest stories with my son, he was 16 and he was tired of working for mom, right? Because working for me was easier because he didn't have like a lot of time restrictions. We are traveling a lot. He couldn't be on a schedule. Well, he came home that summer at 16 and put his little hands on his hips and said, I'm going to go work. I'm going to go work at a grocery store. I said, all right, that's interesting. So you choose that. You have to be on time. You cannot be even a minute late. Like at my office, you can be a minute late. I mean, as long as you get work done, it's not about clocking in because that's what entrepreneurs do. But you'll be an employee. So you're going to have to clock in. You have to be on time. You have to take your breaks. You have to do all those things. I mean, after day one, he came home and said, I'm going to quit. And I said, oh, no, the deal was the deal was 60 days. He said, I can't tolerate that. I can't do this for like 59 more days. I said, oh, but you will. And I tell you, that was the worst. It was the worst 59 days of my life because I had to listen to whine and complain. And finally, it was just like, there'll be no whining or complaining. You have to pay me because we talked about this. I don't say I told you so, but now you're going to live with your decision. And parents, and it's not that I've done it all right, but I've done more right than not right. I mean, I've raised pretty darn responsible, amazing kids. At 18 years old, they're an adult. They got an LLC, which is an entity, a corporate structure for their birthday.
Yep.
In fact, Friday, I'm taking my daughter to go see some vending machines because she's 18 now and she got her first company. She did some car detailing in the beginning. She said, oh, didn't want to do that. That was too much trading time for money. So now she's getting a little more strategic. Now we're going to go see some vending machines. But she heads off to college and she's going to have a little business before she heads out the door. And she'll be
What are some of the common challenges you're finding dealing with parents being able to help their children learn about money?
Well, first of all, they need to take it seriously and they need to model it. So
Yep.
if you're all talk and I call it all talk, no action, the kids aren't going to be no action too.
Sure.
So you've got to model it. You've got to put it in your conversations. You need to, like, I take my kids to go see real estate. They've sat in real estate deals. They've sat in board meetings. Some kids of entrepreneurs don't even know what their parents do. Right? They just know they're rich and they can just go to mom and dad for money. So when you go to makeyourkidsmillionaires.com, right? Because I know it's easier to get the book on Amazon from Australia, this book. If you send into our office your receipt of getting it, then there's $1,500 of bonuses. So it's never pay your kid an allowance. So you never give them a flat rate. You make them negotiate for the money they want to make per month. You let them start designing their income. So there's a lot of fun activities that I put $1,500 of activities of all sorts of fun kids courses and things I did to my kids. That kind of, it held a lot of consequences. And parents, you gotta carve out the time. I don't care if it's an hour a week, 2 hours a week, and just be mindful of your conversation around money and your ability to make money. Like if you're an entrepreneur, do you really want them to go get a job? I mean, I didn't. I mean, I got the value. I mean, my son got a job for 60 days and never got another one. He learned to be an entrepreneur. Then he moved back he was a ski instructor. He was a math tutor. He loved to shovel snow. He had a truck so he could dig people out because we live in Lake Tahoe with massive snow.
Really? Great.
So he would dig people out with his tow rope and charge them $50. He would figure out how to make money without having to go clock in on a job. There's just a way that parents need to be with their kids.
Now, you're an entrepreneur, so you've instilled that in your child. A lot of people listening to this are going to not be business people and have a job. I don't think it's wrong having a job, but you still have to be financially fluent.
Correct.
That's what, as parents, we have to teach our children.
Correct. But that doesn't, even if you have a job, that doesn't mean you can't have an entity, a limited proprietary or vice versa, and have property.
It doesn't mean you shouldn't have another business on the side. And I like real estate, but whether it's property, whether it's shares, whether it's ETFs, you've got to teach them that. When you start introducing these sort of things, these discussions about property, shares, stock market to your children, Loral?
6, 7, 8. Stocks and investing. The easiest, funnest way to introduce stocks is, what do you use? Are they on a Samsung device or an Apple device? Are they on a Mac? What do they use technically? Right. And so what do they use around the house? What kind of vehicle do you drive? So those are like obvious stock options or things that they use so they can see the use and they can see the value. Property is one of my favorite. And again,
I could just interrupt for a sec, Loral. I think that's a really good thing. I want to just emphasize what you said, that the stock market is something people don't understand, even a lot of adults. It's really just the big companies of the world. What you were saying, it's what you use every day is a stock. It's not just something in the ether.
Yeah, and you just own shares of that. And so we start with a lot of that. You say when to start. take them out and show them property. When you're driving through town, instead of just, driving, listening to the music, turn that off, listen to my audios, your audios, listen to our podcast, but start looking at, if you notice your community, somebody owns every piece of property, somebody owns every business. The question to your kids, to you, is why don't you own more of it? What can you do to own a laundromat, to own an RV park, own a storage unit, own an apartment? Like, what can you do? Like when I was in Australia, I had really, really high net worth clients in the Sydney, Melbourne, when a couple guys from Perth. And we started an elite car club because they wanted, 12, 13 of the most elite cars in the world. And as you know, getting any of those right drive cars to Australia is amazingly expensive, usually
Yes.
3 to 4 times the price. So we started that company and I helped them form the company. Everybody bought a car, put the car in a fleet, and then we did drive days and rent days, and that thing made millions of dollars. I don't even know if it's still existing. When I left around 15, 16, meaning just not traveling there on a regular basis anymore, then I sold my shares back out to them and they ran it like a full business. And there are so many things you can do. Commercial cleaning companies. The other thing too, I tell a lot of people is the not sexy businesses are sometimes the most lucrative.
Oh,
Right?
yes.
Pest control, the commercial cleaning company, the power washing company, the hauling crap away. Like in America, it's called 1-800-GOT-JUNK. Same kind of businesses are over there. Is you pay to haul by the pound crap away from your apartment. So again, when people own property, I say own everything around it that you'd be paying somebody to do. So if you need to haul something away, why don't you own that company? Why don't you own the pressure washing company? Why don't you own the cleaning company? Why don't you own the construction company? So when I help people build property, it's not just investing, it's owning the businesses that are also going to get the cash flow that you have to pay for the upgrades and the services and the TIs and everything. So it's build bigger and think bigger, and your goals are going to be achieved much faster.
There's so many things we could discuss, and we really even haven't spent a lot of time talking about how to help children. So again, I'm going to leave a link in the show notes to your books. And there's one more question I'd like to ask you. But before I do, I also know that you kindly offered, before we pressed the record button, something special for the listeners and viewers of this. So what was it that you would like to offer them an opportunity to be part of one of your sessions?
So I do an event once a month. It's called the Millionaire Intensive, and it's about the principles of how to become a millionaire, and then how do you build a company so you actually have that side hustle, on the side, whether you have a job or not. And then we put you into a marketplace for 3 of the 8 hours where you get to sell your stuff to our community. So I've had like these 2 pieces of jewelry are actually women from Sydney.
So those who are not watching this but listening or driving, don't take your eyes off the road. There's some lovely jewelry Loral's wearing around her neck.
But this is like 2 stay-home moms from Australia that came together and they created a jewelry business. Their jewelry is now sold in the airports around Australia. And they went from hardly making any money in their garages to being in the airports. So,
Okay, so how do people get into this session of yours, Loral?
Go to the Millionaire Intensive. So there'll be a link in the show notes. askloral.com/TMI. And so we'll give them tickets to the Millionaire Intensive as well. They can email at any point to askloral@gmail.
So Loral is Loral, ask Loral, LORAL.com. I'll leave a link in the show note, of course.
And we'll put an email that you can send your receipt from this in. So if you buy this on Amazon, when you send the receipt, we can get that. And then we can send you a link to get all the gifts that are on the site, because I really want you to have the $1,500 of gifts.
You're very generous with all that. One last bit of information. You understand, once you get to the top, I believe it's our obligation to help other people up the ladder as well. So that's very generous of you. What one piece of advice would you give parents who want to start, that we haven't mentioned, who want to start laying the groundwork for their children's financial independence?
I'm going to say
they don't know where to start. They don't even know, where do I start? This is all very good, but I've got my own money problems. How do I help my kids?
YouTube every day, 10 minutes a day, every day, and then go buy this book. Go through the 86, checklist. And for the parents who have their own money issues that are really big, also grab this book off
The book
Amazon.
is, that people can't see it, is the first one is, of course, Make Your Kids Millionaires, and the other one is Millionaire Maker. What's the big mistake, the financial mistake you're seeing adults making then?
They just
not allowing them to become millionaires?
they overpay taxes and they don't pay attention to it. I call it the invisible pain. They're just used to overpaying taxes. And if you overpay $10,000 a year in taxes for 20 years, you've all now given your government or your accounting of your government, in America it's called the IRS, $1.1 million. So you could be a millionaire just by paying attention to not overpaying taxes, and then stop buying lifestyle stuff, buy assets like property. Get in the asset game as fast as you can.
Back to delayed gratification and do the hard things now, and then you're going to be able to enjoy it. You take the advantage of compounding leverage and time that real estate offers you, but it takes time. That's the problem. And at the moment on the internet, hey, I can make you a millionaire before Christmas, Loral. By the way, if you want to, I can actually show you how to buy 10 properties in 10 minutes. That's what we have to, and at my business, compete with, but because, no, it doesn't work that way.
And I don't know how many people fall for that crap, but it's fascinating. Make sure you go to the show notes, follow me, let me educate you. So I'd say, like, my simple answer would be start learning, lean in and learn more. 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day, give some time to making this topic serious in your life and your kids' lives.
Invest in yourself first.
Absolutely.
Invest in your education. Loral Langmeir, thank you so much for your time. It was a lovely conversation.
You too. I appreciate it, Michael.
I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Loral. And as you heard, how you think about money will help you personally, but also help your children. And I'll leave a link in the show note to the resources she offered. But we also talked about Wealth Retreat. And interestingly, Loral, just after I finished talking to her, said, hey, I don't want to come along to that too. I know that many of the people who joined us at Wealth Retreat in previous years achieved amazing results after coming. Interesting, I'd like to just share with you for a moment an email I received only last week from one of last year's guests that made me feel warm and fuzzy. Look, it may be hard for you to imagine Michael feeling warm and fuzzy, but Chris actually wrote, attending Wealth Retreat was a pivotal moment for me. He said the sessions were enlightening and I've implemented several of the strategies that have significantly improved my approach to both property investment and personal wealth management. Chris said, since the Wealth Retreat, I've taken bold steps in refining my financial strategies. This past year has been transformative. I love it when people use words like that. And I've seen remarkable growth in my investments, in my business, and my personal development. He finished off by saying, thank you, Michael and Pam, and everyone involved in Wealth Retreat. Had truly been a life-altering experience, setting me on a path for continual growth and success. And that's why I'll be back this year. Now, interestingly, a lot of people do come back a second and third, fourth time, not because they haven't learned it all, it's because they're now at the next level. And so I'm going to suggest that you join us at Wealth Retreat, because this is going to be a special year and you're going to get exclusive insights, up-to-date information for the currently changing property markets, great networking opportunities. You're going to be able to connect with high-achieving peers, some of who are returning, as I said, after being there a couple of times, expanded content. And I know this year, a number of very successful investors are coming to Wealth Retreat, many with very significant property portfolios and businesses. So you're not going to just learn from the faculty, from having breakfast, lunch and dinner, drinks at the end of the day with these people. So if the 5 days you spend with us makes you even 1% more focused, fired up and effective, what would that be worth you? If you finish the next 5 years, even 10% above in all those areas, what would that be worth you? Because that's the theme of Wealth Retreat. Where will you be in 5 years' time? So come along to Wealth Retreat May 3rd to 7th on the Gold Coast. Go to wealthretreat.com.au, express your interest, and let's have a chat to see if it's right for you. But don't count yourself out. I'd love to see you at Wealth Retreat.
Now here's Michael's mindset message. Remember, a change in your thinking will lead to a change in your life.
My mindset session for you today is short and sweet because we had a long chat with Loral. The question I want to ask you is, what are you avoiding doing? Because there are answers hidden in the actions you avoid. See, the powerful truth is everything you want in life is on the other side of something you don't want to do. The answers you seek are found in the actions you avoid. The message I'm trying to tell you, it's tempting to think you can plan your way to a better future, that you can sit where you are and plot a perfect course, but there's no escaping the truth. The body you seek is found in the workouts that you avoid. The relationships you seek are found in the hard conversations you delay. The clarity you seek is found in the walks that you skip. The purpose you seek is found in the focused work that you neglect. The success you seek is found in the hours of execution that you put off. So what are the answers you're currently seeking in your life? Is it possible that they're simply hiding in the actions you're avoiding? The answer is found in the action. Remember that. That's my mindset message for you today. Thank you for spending the last little while with me. I hope you got some benefit from this show. But before you move on to the next podcast you're going to listen to, let me remind you I have another show that I produce once a week with leading demographer Simon Kirstenmacher. We call that Demographics Decoded, where Simon and I unveil the trends that are going to shape your future. In my mind, this is a must-listen to podcast for anyone interested in property investment, but also for business people and entrepreneurs. So if you don't currently subscribe to Demographics Decoded, just please stop for a second and subscribe on your podcast app where you're listening to this, or on YouTube. And of course, if you don't subscribe to this show, the Michael Yardney podcast, why not click the link that says follow or subscribe wherever you're listening right now. So twice a week, you're going to get benefit from my guests and me. Oh, and I'd like to ask you a little favour, please. If you did enjoy today's show and you know somebody who would also benefit, please tell them about the Michael Yardney podcast and Demographics Decoded. There's a share button on every podcast app. On Apple Podcasts, there are 3 little buttons at the top of the player. Or just tell them about it. Just have a chat with them. Now, I hope you're going to be doing them a favour, and you're definitely going to be doing me a favour in my quest to help as many people as possible to become financially literate. And by the way, I've got a special bonus for you. As my way of saying thank you for subscribing, just go to podcastbonus.com.au. There'll be a link in the show notes, podcastbonus.com.au, where I've got a bunch of ebooks and reports. It's just my way of saying thank you for taking the time to listen. And remember, the information that we give you in this podcast is general information, not specific information about your personal circumstances, because we don't know about them. But if you do want specific information, you can always have a chat with my team at Metropole. Go to metropole.com.au. If you really want to learn more, you can always listen to the previous podcast, the many episodes we've already published. Just go back to the old episodes, which each have lessons about property investment, success, and money. Once again, thanks for listening to today's show.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Michael Yardney podcast, which was brought to you by Metropole, who help their clients grow, protect, and pass on their wealth through strategic property and wealth advice. If you like what you heard and don't already subscribe, you'll find us on iTunes or on your favorite Android app as the Michael Yardney podcast. Watch out for our next show, which comes to you twice a week, and you'll learn some new ideas about property investment, success, and money in around 30 minutes. To get more of Michael's thoughts, go across to www.propertyupdate.com.au and sign up for his daily morning briefing, and you'll hear from not only Michael, but a group of leading property success and money experts. And just a reminder that the information you heard in this show today is general educational advice and not specific investment advice, as we don't know your personal circumstances. If you're looking for specific advice, why not ask the team at Metropole to help you?